Which role is the most impactful for solo queue? What about the worst? That's what we'll be covering in today's video, ranking every single role from best to worst for Season 13. We'll be using data from the ranked ladder along with our challenger players' opinions to cultivate the most accurate rankings. Be sure to chime in and let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you disagree with the list, what would yours look like? But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. Kicking it off with the most impactful role for Season 13, it's none other than jungle. Prior to the ranked reset, 29 of the top 100 challenger players were junglers, which is the highest percent share for any role. Since 13.1 isn't a massive meta-shifting patch, we expect jungle to be leading the charge in this statistic once again. When it comes down to agency and the potential to influence every single game, jungle gives you the greatest shot. There are so many different win conditions you can play towards as a jungler, which allows you to adapt to each game super well. Does your team have an aggro bot lane like Samira Nautilus? Spam ganking early and getting them ahead would be great to play towards. Is your team playing to scale and lacks any gank setup? That's completely fine, as you can hard farm, play for counter ganks, or look to secure some early dragons. No matter what your team or the enemy team looks like, there's almost always a win condition you can map out as a jungler, which gives the role amazing consistent carry potential. As a laner, if you run into a bad matchup, oftentimes the best you can do is try to go even and hope your team doesn't feed. In Season 13 especially, where full clearing has become much stronger, jungle matchups are not as important as in the past. Even if you're in a bad matchup, you can plan your path so that you have a lesser chance of interacting with the enemy jungler. As a laner, it's much more difficult to avoid a bad matchup, as you could just go roam, but there's a trade-off as you're not guaranteed to get anything out of it and run the risk of falling behind in experience. Overall, based on statistics and our challenger players' input, jungle is the best role for solo queue to start Season 13. Taking home the number 2 spot, ever so slightly behind the jungle role, is mid lane. Despite mid being number 2, you could definitely make a very valid argument for mid being the best role in the game right now. Based on statistics, mid lane was not too far behind jungle's 29 players in the top 100, as there were 25 mid laners in the top 100 of the ranked ladder prior to 13.1. Mid lane being smack dab in the center of Summoner's Rift provides you with the ability to evenly impact all parts of the map. It doesn't matter if a fight breaks out in top river or bot river, you have the exact same opportunity to influence the fight with good awareness. Solo queue is all about snowballing advantages, and when you're playing mid lane, you have amazing opportunities to do so. Vice versa, if you're playing top lane and a skirmish breaks out over bot lane Scuttle Crab, you have to stay put and pray your team comes out on top. With mid lane priority, you can almost become a second jungler, shoving in waves and then pressuring the map by dipping into Fog of War. Mid difference in solo queue is massive in determining the outcomes of games, as the lane also heavily dictates what junglers are allowed to do. If you have mid priority and are able to move first, your jungler can play so much more aggressive. You can even team up with your jungler and regularly assist them on invades plays, forcing the enemy jungler to fall behind. One of the main reasons why we have mid lane ranked one spot lower than jungle is due to counter matchups being way more prevalent. Mid lane is the role where matchups matter the most in solo queue, because if you fall behind, the enemy has full reign to take over the rest of the map. Sometimes as a mid laner, you'll just have to accept the fact that your main goal is to survive lane, whereas with jungle, there's always something you can do regardless of matchup. The role earning the number 3 spot in our list is going to be support. In the top 100 of the ranked ladder, there were 21 support mains prior to the ranked reset for Season 13. This may come as a surprise to some people, but support actually has more consistent impact than ADC most of the time. The outcome of bot lane is often way more heavily influenced by how the support plays than the ADC. It's much easier to carry games as a good support when your ADC is mediocre than it is to carry games when you're a good ADC, but the support is trash. Many supports have CC tools that, if landed, can lead to an instant advantage in lane, while most AD carries do not. Overall, support has more agency over how the lane phase plays out, which is one reason we rate it higher than ADC for solo queue. Although your map impact is not nearly as good as mid or jungle, supports do have the ability to influence lanes quite well. Coming off reset and pathing towards mid lane can often lead to getting your mid lane ahead, or at the very least provide your team with vision. Strong vision control makes a huge difference in how your team can play the game, so if you're the support early to objectives and controlling the correct side of the map, the impact can be incredible. You really can't even argue that support is a weaker role, since it lacks damage when you have someone like Heimerdinger as a strong meta pick. Back in the day, support used to be a much more team-reliant role, but it's come a long way since then. Moving on to the number 4 spot, which will reveal the complete top 5, it's going to be top lane. Based on statistics, top lane is one of the worst roles for solo queue, as there were only 12 top lane mains in the top 100 of the ranked ladder. So what makes top lane one of the weaker roles for solo queue? Main factor is due to the role's limited influence over the entirety of the map. Having the winning bot lane is so key to your team's success in solo queue, and as a top laner, you really have no way to impact the lane. Mid and jungle, on the other hand, can easily influence the state of bot lane, which is a big reason why we have those roles rated higher. You can be hard smashing top lane, up multiple kills in your opponent, but because it's not as easy to accelerate that lead by helping other lanes, it can be much more difficult to close out early game leads as a top laner. The raw snowball potential is simply not as existent in the top lane as opposed to the other roles. It became even worse this previous season for top lane when Riot nerfed teleport so you can't TP to minions or wards prior to 14 minutes. This is why someone like Shen with his global ultimate can be so valuable, and we've had him very high on our top lane tier list for a while now. Compared to all other roles in the game, ADC is the one where you're so much more reliant on your team in order to succeed. Sure, if you're 4 items and can space properly in fights, you can have incredible impact later in the game, but it's getting there that's the problem. The stats back it up as well, as the top 100 of the ranked ladder featured only 13 ADC mains. If your support is outclassed, there are very few ways for you to actually influence a game as ADC. With top lane, at least you don't have to rely on anyone but yourself to win lane, so there's less external factors to worry about. In other roles, if you fall behind, many champions can still impact games due to providing crowd control for teamfights or roaming to help other lanes get ahead. ADCs absolutely suck at roaming, with the exception of Twitch, and very few provide great utility. ADCs are for the most part extremely reliant on dealing damage to be effective, so if you fail to at least go even in lane, you're often no more useful than a cannon minion. In other words, the role is extremely feast or famine. With most ADCs being very vulnerable champions, and with nearly every new champion release having a dash these days, it's becoming more and more difficult to succeed with ADC in solo queue. It's much different in pro play, where you have teammates who are willing to peel for you, but in the chaotic nature of solo queue, where it's every man for himself, ADCs just end up with the short end of the stick more often than not. Even if you are ahead and doing well as ADC, if the enemy comp has a Hecarim, Kassadin, or Camille, good luck surviving long enough to actually make your lead mean something. All in all, there are so many external factors that dictate the power of ADC, which you have no control over, so it's definitely one of the most coin flip roles for solo queue. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So there you have it guys, ranking the roles from best to worst for Season 13. Do you agree with our list? Any changes that you would make personally? Let us know down in the comments below. With that being said, good luck with your Season 13 ranked climbs, and we will see you in the next video.